Donnie Darko. Donnie Darko is an American film produced in 2000 and released in 2001. It is a science fiction horror film. Set in 1988, it tells the story of Donnie, a boy who has visions of a sinister giant rabbit named Frank who predicts the end of the world. It had a budget of $3.8 million and was filmed in 28 days. It starred Jake Gyllenhaal, Jenna Malone, Drew Barrymore, Mary McDonnell, Catherine Ross, Patrick Swayze, Seth Rogen, Noah Weil, and Maggie Gyllenhaal. Donnie Darko had a limited release, 1 month after the attack on the Twin Towers, September 11, 2001. After being released on home video, it was later released in theaters. It achieved cult status. The director's cut, Donnie Darko, the director's cut, was released in May 2004. Plot. On October 2, 1988, in Middlesex, Virginia, troubled young Donnie Darko sleepwalks out of his house, following a figure dressed in a monstrous rabbit costume. The figure introduces himself as Frank and tells Donnie the precise moment the world will end, in 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds, during the Halloween party. Donnie returns home to discover a jet engine has crashed into his bedroom. No one in his family was injured. His sister Elizabeth tells him that the military investigators don't know the origin of the device. Over the next few days, Donnie continues to have visions of Frank, and his parents Eddie and Rose send him to psychotherapist Dr. Thurman, who believes Donnie is detached from reality and that his visions of Frank are daylight hallucinations, symptomatic of paranoid schizophrenia. When Frank tells Donnie about time travel, Donnie asks his science teacher, Dr. Kenneth Monatoff, about it, and they have conversations in which, among other things, they mention that because there are endless possibilities for a given event, one possibility cancels out the others. Dr. Monatoff gives Donnie The Philosophy of Time Travel, a book written by Roberta Sparrow, a former science teacher at the school who is by now a seemingly senile woman living out of town. Donnie also begins dating Gretchen Ross, who has recently moved to town with her mother under a new identity to escape her violent stepfather. Frank begins to influence Donnie's actions through sleepwalking, including flooding his high school by bursting a water pipe. Gym teacher Kitty Farmer attributes the vandalism to the influence of Graham Greene's short story, The Wreckers, assigned by a teacher named Karen Pomeroy. At one point, Donnie's visions lead him to discover where his father hides a gun. Meanwhile, Mrs. Farmer begins giving attitude lessons borrowed from famed motivational speaker Jim Cunningham and arranges for him to give a speech at the school, at which Donnie insults him. Later, Donnie finds Cunningham's wallet and address, and Frank, appearing to him with a blasted and bleeding eye, suggests burning down his house. The firefighters, concluding that the fire was not arson, discover a stash of child pornography there upon extinguishing the flames and arresting Cunningham. Mrs. Farmer, who wishes to testify in her defense, asks Donnie's mother to accompany the dance group to Los Angeles, to which their daughters belong. With his parents and younger sister away, Donnie and Elizabeth host a Halloween costume party at home to celebrate Elizabeth's acceptance to Harvard. At the party, Gretchen arrives distraught because her mother has disappeared. Donnie realizes that the time prophesied by Frank is only a few hours away. He takes Gretchen and 2 other friends to visit Sparrow. At the place, which is practically an abandoned house, they are attacked by 2 high school bullies, Seth and Ricky. Donnie, Seth, and Ricky argue in the middle of the road. Just as Sparrow is walking home and stops to look, a car accidentally hits Gretchen, killing her. The driver turns out to be Frank, Elizabeth's boyfriend, dressed in the same bunny costume from Donnie's visions. Frank gets out of the car to ask if she is dead, and Donnie shoots him, hitting him in the right eye. Donnie then carries Gretchen home, where he says goodbye to his sister. He then drives as he watches the wormhole form above his house. Donnie drives to the top of a hill where he sees the wormhole, into which the plane carrying his mother and little sister returns. The plane is shaken by the wormhole, and the turbine is detached and travels through the hole. Donnie returns to the car where Gretchen is dead, looks at her, and smiles. Donnie goes back in time to the night the turbine fell, laughing as he realizes everything. He stays in bed, where this time the turbine kills him, thus saving Gretchen, his mother, his sister, and Frank. In the morning, the firefighters are at the accident site, where his entire family is distraught in the garden. Gretchen, alive, having never met Donnie, asks a person who had happened, and he tells her that a turbine fell and killed a boy. Gretchen sees Donnie's mother, and they both greet each other, feeling like they already know each other. Comments. Donnie Darko is the film's main character. He's a troubled teenager who attends therapy for mental health issues. He possibly suffers from paranoid schizophrenia. Gretchen Ross is a new girl at school with whom Donnie falls in love. She explains that she moved to the town with her mother to escape her abusive stepfather. Gretchen's death is pivotal to the story, as it triggers the domino effect. Roberta Sparrow, grandmother Death, is an elderly woman who was once a nun and dedicated herself to science. Long ago, she too was thrown into an alternate reality, and the experience shattered her mind. She wrote the book, The Philosophy of Time Travel, which is essential to understanding the film. Frank is the man in the bunny suit. This is a complex character. While Frank is just a guy celebrating Halloween, the character in the bunny suit is dead and travels back in time to warn Donnie about the end of the world, the tangent universe, and everything else we'll be discussing. Jim Cunningham is a motivational speaker with a double standard. On the one hand, he's a seemingly inspiring public figure with a huge following, and on the other, he's a pedophile with dark secrets. The manipulated living are all the characters we see in the film who interact with Donnie, such as his family, teachers, and friends. Their actions contribute to the events of the film, often unknowingly. Opening scene. Donnie wakes up in the middle of a road. He sleepwalked there. It's shown that Donnie has emotional problems and is attending therapy. Some time before the events of the film, a tear occurred in space-time. We don't know the reason, but it doesn't matter. That tear has led to the creation of a tangent universe. One night, Donnie sleepwalks outside the house. For the first time, we meet Frank, a person in a bunny suit. For now, let's consider Frank a person from the future who guides Donnie. Frank says the world will end in 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds. A jet engine crashes into Donnie's room. Donnie is safe because he left home. Tangent universe. Frank gets Donnie to break the water main at school. Donnie doesn't remember doing it. Donnie demonstrates extraordinary strength by wielding his axe against a solid bronze statue with his bare hands. This is one of the living receiver's powers. The school floods, and activities are cancelled. Donnie then has his first conversation with Gretchen, and the two get along well. Donnie reunites with Frank, who asks him, "Do you believe in time travel?" He later speaks with a teacher, who gives him the book, The Philosophy of Time Travel. Donnie discovers that Roberta Sparrow, or Grandma Death, was a science teacher at his school. The fourth dimension grants Donnie the power of foresight. This manifests itself in the form of a transparent tube emanating from people. Donnie notices a tube emanating from himself and follows it. It leads him to his parents' gun, which he keeps with him. After an argument with Jim Cunningham, Donnie accidentally finds Jim's wallet on the sidewalk. As a result, he discovers the location of Jim's house. Donnie and Gretchen go to a movie. Gretchen falls asleep. Frank appears and removes his rabbit head, revealing a face with a bleeding eye. Frank is dead and comes from the future. Frank convinces Donnie to burn down Jim Cunningham's house while Gretchen continues to sleep at the movie theater. This results in firefighters finding child pornography installed in Jim's basement, leading to his arrest. The gym teacher, Kitty, decides to testify in Jim's defense, so Donnie's mother, Rose, replaces her on a school field trip with her daughter. Donnie's father is also out of town, allowing Donnie and his sister to throw a mind-blowing Halloween party. Donnie meets Ms. Karen, who mentions cellar door. She tells Donnie, this famous linguist once said that of all the phrases in the English language, of all the infinite combinations of words in history, cellar door is the most beautiful. Here's an example of manipulated life. Karen unwittingly leads Donnie on. As it turns out, Donnie and Gretchen later snoop around in Roberta Sparrow's basement and find two school bullies stealing, who attack Donnie and his friends. As he runs out, a car swerves and accidentally kills Gretchen. The driver is none other than Frank, a boy dressed as a Halloween bunny. Donnie pulls out the gun he had grabbed earlier and, in a fit of rage, kills Frank. Frank thus becomes the manipulated dead, who travels back in time to guide Donnie on his quest. Donnie carries Gretchen's body to the lake and cries. He realizes he's lost everything in this tangent universe. Donnie has only one goal, to send the propeller hurtling through space-time. So he uses his powers to start the engine of a plane. This is the same plane his mother and sister are on. The engine he sends back crashes into Donnie's house in the primary universe. However, in the primary universe, it kills Donnie. Remember, only in the tangent universe does Donnie sleepwalk. In the primary universe, he chooses to stay in bed and die. In short, the film suggests that it could all have been real, rather than Donnie imagining it. The physics point of view. The film practically begins with a plane engine crashing into Donnie Darko's room, but he wasn't there because he left because he sleepwalks, and a voice guided him to a golf course. The fact is that no one knows where that engine came from. The plane was never found. This engine practically came from the future. 28 days later, the universe will collapse, causing the plane Donnie's mother and his sister were traveling in to lose an engine. It finds a wormhole and travels back in time to crash into Donnie's house. But Donnie is forced out of the house by the voice of Frank, who is none other than his older sister's boyfriend. Except Frank is dead, but let's go back a bit to the point of the universe collapsing. Here there is a turning point, no less than two universes have been created, the primary one and the one they call the tangent universe, which is where the whole story takes place. The primary universe has collapsed and is destroyed and everything continues in the tangent universe. But if you look at it carefully and with determination, a time loop has formed, that is, a wormhole. This isn't explained by the film's theory, but it does have a physical explanation. According to the scientific community, it's not possible to travel to the past, only to the future. We've mentioned this before, but in the universe there are phenomena called wormholes, which are in themselves a portal to different points, past or future, depending on where you enter and the space-time coordinates at the start of the hole. In other words, the moment of its creation is analogous to the restore points on computers. The first restore point is the moment you first configure the computer, and from then on, you can create another restore point. If you want to restore your computer, it's like going back in time, since that software will be exactly as you had it on that date, but you can't go back any further. That is, you can't restore to a point before you first configured your computer or created a restore point. I hope that's clear. It's the same with wormholes. If you enter a point in the middle, you can go back in time, but you can't go beyond the moment the wormhole was created. This is similar to the Dark series, where you have to break that loop to avoid being trapped inside a tangent universe. Now, according to the physics of the film, there are types of people. There's the living recipient, Donnie, who, upon being chosen, is gifted with super strength, four-dimensional vision, and the ability to bend space and time. And there are the manipulated dead, like Frank, and then there are the manipulated living, who are the rest. Let's keep in mind that this story follows a theological approach, which is why the book is called Time Travel Philosophy, not Time Travel Physics. The book is about how each person has a vector that tells them where and when to move. It's kind of like destiny. So, what happens if someone doesn't obey this vector? And this means that, indeed, there is a divinity that guides us. That was Donnie's question to his teacher, and one the teacher couldn't answer for fear of being fired. Well, let's remember that education should be secular. And well, in those parts, they take it very seriously. And this is speaking of public schools, of course. That's why a former nun who later became a physics teacher wrote the book, Mrs. Roberta Sparrow, but she wrote it in the philosophical sense, addressing physical topics. Roberta may have gone through the same thing Donnie did before, that is, she lived in a tangent universe. And so, to conclude, why does Donnie die? Some say it wasn't necessary, but let's consider some key points. He goes back in time to revive his girlfriend Gretchen, save his mother and sister from the plane crash, and, incidentally, save everyone else. His girlfriend told him that if they traveled back in time, they could change bad things into good ones to try to save the world. But the most important thing is this: in the office, Donnie told his therapist that he wanted it all to be over. Hearing everything and seeing everything was very exhausting, and then he curled up in a fetal position and cried. I think this is where he understood his ending. Later, when he wrote the letter to Roberta, he told her he was afraid to ask why she would tell him everything was real and nothing was fiction. From my point of view, Donnie made the decision to go against natural laws and therefore, following the philosophy of time travel, to go against God's will and save the universe. That is, Donnie had to die so that the primary universe could continue on its course. By interrupting it, he went against the law of the universe, or nature, or God, however you choose to see it. And the tangent universe was created, which is just a loop that will be broken until the path designated by that unknown force is followed. There's a phrase that impacts Donnie: every living being dies alone. This adds to his fears that it's not just schizophrenia he has. He knows he's going to cease to exist. He has to decide between following divine design or his own. With his death, he prevented all events from leading precisely to that, which caused a disruption in spacetime and created a wormhole that consumed the entire universe. In other words, he prevented the end of the world. Keep in mind that this movie is also from 2000, so this makes sense. He gave his girlfriend a new chance at happiness, mainly, with all this, but also his mother and younger sister, and well, everyone. In this way, he broke the time loop, and the primary universe was restored. This is the explanation I have from the perspective of physics and the story of the movie itself, following the philosophy of time travel. There are missing details, such as how a piece of metal can travel through those vortices. And that metal must be returned to restore the primary universe. The world collapsed and everything because Donnie followed a path other than the one he was destined to follow. All of this triggered a time loop in which everyone was trapped. So Donnie fixed all of this by staying in bed, but this time he knew exactly what this meant. Now he would follow the path commanded by the universe, nature, or God, who knows, but an unknown force drives us to do certain things. The only paradoxical fact would be the one involving Frank telling Donnie to get up and leave his house. I mean, if Frank wanted Donnie to fix things, and things would be fixed with Donnie staying in bed, why does he make him leave the house? The only thing I can think of is that this isn't the first time loop, so now Donnie needs someone to make him see things as if in third person, only then does one realize one's own actions. That's all. I hope you like it and leave me some feedback. Bye.